Welcome to the freaking after party. Today's glowing frisbee that can make your enemies explode is reserved exclusively for our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. So I was watching the TRON trailer for this episode, and that intro sequence where it's like a computer, blah blah blah, and it's that voice that does it. Jogged me back into this memory that like when I first started like doing video work, I made this remix video where I used that as a part of the intro. And then I went looking for this remix that I made like 15 years ago to share it all with you. And I cannot find it, but it was like my first attempt at doing remix. And so I don't think it has like a central conceit. I think I literally just pulled all of the like video game tech media and like mashed it all together and did like 4 squares and like moved stuff around. If I find it at some point before this comes out, I will definitely share it with the patrons. But I just had a memory of like, remember when I did like creative things for fun? Wasn't that cool?
So, Geraldine, with your family, your deep family history with TRON.
deep family history with it. Yes.
Have you watched the sequel or the series?
I have not. I'm almost positive my brother has, and I believe he told me not to. He was like,
wow.
I've heard that the sequel is incomprehensibly bad, is my understanding. Yeah. So I
watched the trailer after watching this. And there's definitely like Olivia Wilde has that like digi girl haircut that everyone had in 2010.
Is it super blonde?
It's like little, she looks like Buttercup from the Powerpuff Girls.
Oh yeah, I had that hair.
Yeah.
A
little flipped up like bob with the little like bangs.
Spiky bangs. Yep.
I definitely also had it.
Yeah.
But also even in the trailer, it was like, oh, we're dusting off the top of the arcade machine and like the Flynn's neon is like crackling itself back on. I was like, I was around in 2010 and paying attention to movies and could not have been less enthused by that. Like, oh shit, we're going back to Flynn's. Like, I mean, there must have been people like your brother and my partner who were just like, yeah. But it just felt so like, remember this thing? It's okay, but we're back.
I think you needed to be slightly deeper in Gen X to get disappointed by this specific film.
I mean, I was disappointed. I thought I liked TRON before.
Well, I mean, to have seen it at all, I guess.
Yeah. And then, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw this in the theater. If I saw TRON Legacy in the theater, potentially. Wow. I have no memory of it, but I remember the movie being bad.
You should see, because I always think it's like a cool badge of like honor when no one's seen a film and then you saw it in the theater. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a cool thing. Like I knew a guy who saw Pluto Nash in the theater.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And wow. I thought that was a remarkable thing. I feel like that would be
cool for a good movie that you love and that you're like, I was in on the first wave of fandom for this thing, but not TRON Legacy. Like that's not.
Well, so what was interesting about TRON Legacy is that the one similarity I guess it had with the first movie is, the first one kind of pioneered CGI, and then the second one pioneered the reverse, like make them look younger. But apparently did so in a very uncanny valley, creepy mask way. And I only saw a tiny bit of it. But yeah, it does look like an animatronic Jeff Bridges.
Amazing how much better that technology got, like pretty fat. Like the fact that like Captain Marvel
did it.
Captain Marvel.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, almost the whole movie. Like it had to be good enough. It's wild. That shit's wild to me.
Yeah. Ant-Man did it with Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer, and they did it very well.
And so did Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Oh yeah, with Kurt Russell. And of course
Kurt Russell, Jeff Bridges,
/ Jeff
Harrison
Bridges.
Ford. Yeah.
And there is the advantage of doing it with well-known actors who have been around for a long time, because there is so much footage of them at those ages. But I mean, come on, there was so much footage, like just splice in old footage of Jeff, I almost said Jeff Goldblum, dear God, Jeff Bridges from Tron. Like, I feel like they could have done it better than Scary Mask Jeff Bridges. I also don't know the plot. I almost want to watch it now because it's so bad. Like, I'm getting drawn to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about it. And I'm okay with that. I don't remember anything about it other than it was bad. And like, I will just run with the consensus of my poor memory and everybody else on that one. But it is a part of the like the rehashing of everything, right? The like no new IPs, all like nostalgia factor. And like this was also around the time when they started talking about like making fucking movies about like
Disney rides or
but like also oh man, I'm gonna kill this joke. It's not gonna work. But I remember they would talk about making movies of like mascots and candy and shit, like anything to drive nostalgia.
Sure.
Yeah,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Kat.
No, but that was like the era, right? Of Hasbro now has a deal with this studio.
It reminds me a little bit of the BoJack Horseman joke where Mr. Peanut Butter licenses the greeting card, the happy birthday greeting card. And it's like, he's like, I'm birthday dad.
Yes.
You're like, what's the premise of the TV show? But yeah, I think they're struggling. And also pre-existing IP is very cheap. Like you don't really need to pay anyone for anything.
Well, and it is harder to like, if you look at viewership on TV and box office numbers, like it's just so much harder to get a critical mass of viewers on anything, right? Mm-hmm. So the chances that studios and production companies are willing to put into a project, like they want to know that there's an audience baked into it and that's going to come to it. So like that's just a part of the like boring capitalist film model we live in. And you know, with streaming and everything, it's just like it's so hard to get eyeballs on things. I watched Being the Ricardos, which is fucking terrible. But they talked about,
that's what I heard about it. Yeah.
It's not good. But they talked about how like I Love Lucy had like 60 million viewers or some shit like that, like something enormous, because literally everyone with a TV watched that show because it was the only show on, right? Like it was one of three options. Just like what a massively different time
and
than
all
today.
Of those people were being told to smoke Philip Morris cigarettes. I want to close out our bonus here by highlighting the composer of the music for Tron a little bit more. Here's somebody who would be amazing to see a biopic about. Wendy Carlos, who's still around. She's 82. She helped to develop the Moog synthesizer, which is like the first like digital keyboard instrument that was on the market. And she spoke about living as a trans woman in the 70s, which I think is pretty amazing considering that like she was composing A Clockwork Orange and The Shining, like she was in the business. And one thing, and this is just light research I did, so I don't have great sources, but when her electronic album of Bach covers became popular in 1968, she'd already begun medically transitioning, but suddenly she had the ability to do press and like go on talk shows and talk about her album. So she was so distressed about what that might be like that she put on fake sideburns and a man's wig and drew on facial hair so that she could go and promote her album in a way that she had not been living. In the 70s, she had gender confirming surgery and she spoke about how she'd been living as a woman. She had undergone medical transition as early as the 60s. And there's actually like a huge wave of women who were kind of pioneers in electronic music. I feel like I've seen a couple documentaries about it. But yeah, I just thought this is like this cool sort of forgotten woman in film history,
Nice.
Wendy Carlos. And yeah, that's all I know about her from like a bit of internet research. But
I want You Must Remember This podcast episode on her.
Yeah.
That's the level that's what I want. Like that would be so fun to hear about.
The New York Times does a Oh, I mean, she's still around, thankfully, but they do a series of obituaries for women who have been forgotten by history. And that has been like a cool kind of corrective thing of all these like historical figures. But one of the things I did notice about Tron is, especially if you're looking at how convoluted the plot can be at times, is the music does so much heavy lifting in this film. Like it really cues you in on what the emotions are that you should be feeling.
Yeah, and I'd love for like, did anyone ever ask Daft Punk, like when they were doing the album for the sequel, like, has your career been inspired by the soundtrack of the original Tron? I bet they'd say yes. I bet they wouldn't have careers without Moog synthesizers that she helped to develop. Like this is somebody I'd like to know more about. And I think A Clockwork Orange and The Shining also are very notable scores.
Oh yeah,
so,
I mean like, those are huge films. Like that's remarkable. And I think there's also that parallel where, you know, you think about John Williams, who's composed like many large films and everyone knows, and there's this woman composer who has done like several huge movies, and like I had no idea who she was until this discussion, right?
Same, until like clicking through the Wikipedia link from the Tron overview. But
all right, all these forgotten women. There are books about this, including History versus Women, written by me and Ebony Adams. But I was like, as you were talking about that, I was like, man, it'd be dope to have her in our book if I had known about her back then. Geraldine, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to all of our listeners, and we will be with you next week.
Bye.